In episode 5, BlueRiver clarified what it had actually promised the customer and learned not to accept commitments before requirements and capability were reviewed. Now, another question appears. Even when the commitment is clear and capability looks adequate today, what could prevent BlueRiver from delivering that promise tomorrow? And what opportunities could help it perform better? Episode 6 is about risks, opportunities, and real decisions. The goal is not to build a decorative risk register, no. The goal is to connect uncertainty to the promises BlueRiver has chosen to make. Analyze what matters, decide what action is proportionate, and make sure those decisions enter the processes where work actually happens. Now, BlueRiver now has a reviewed order. That does not mean uncertainty has disappeared. No, a cap supplier may extend lead time, demand may rise beyond the forecast, the one technician who knows the new bottle setup may be absent, and the bottle may behave differently when the line runs at full speed. None of this is a nonconformity yet. They are uncertainties that can affect the result BlueRiver intends to achieve. This is the useful starting point for risk-based thinking, not a blank risk register and not a generic brainstorming session, but the real promises the organization has made and the conditions that could help or prevent those promises from being fulfilled. A useful risk statement has a connection to an intended result. For BlueRiver, the intended result might be, for example, deliver the correct private label order on time. The uncertainty is that the cap supplier may not provide enough material. The effect is lost production, late delivery, and damage to customer confidence. Notice the difference between asking, what risks do we have? And asking, what could prevent this process from delivering the result we need? The second question grounds the discussion in the QMS. It also makes evaluation easier because the team can judge the potential impact on a result that actually matters. Now, ISO 9001:2026 makes this logic more explicit. Clause 6.1.1 is about determining risks and opportunities. Clause 6.1.2 focuses on actions to address risks. And clause 6.1.3 focuses separately on actions to address opportunities. So for risks, the organization is expected to determine, analyze, and evaluate what can affect the intended results of the QMS. And the response should be proportionate to the potential impact. Opportunities are also treated in their own right. Determine them, analyze and evaluate them. Identify actions to realize them. Integrate those actions into the QMS and evaluate effectiveness. This separation helps BlueRiver avoid the common habit of putting everything into one colored spreadsheet without making clear decisions. BlueRiver already has a process interaction map from episode 3. That map is now a critical risk tool. So the team can walk through the value flow and ask, process by process, what could prevent the intended output and what could improve it? So in win order, the risk may be accepting a promise without capability. In planning, demand may exceed capacity. In ordering material, a cap supplier may fail. In production, a bottle change may be under-validated. In verification, labels may be mixed. And in delivery, customer communication may be too late. So this keeps risk-based thinking close to reality and connects it to process ownership and decision making. Now, consider the cap supplier. Supplier failure is too generic to manage. So BlueRiver needs to understand the mechanism. It depends on one approved cap source, replacement lead time is long, and the selected retailers expect reliable delivery. That combination makes the risk significant. The decision might be to qualify a second source, maintain a minimum buffer for critical caps, and define an escalation trigger that links purchasing with planning before production is affected. The action is proportionate because the consequence reaches directly into a promise BlueRiver has chosen to make: dependable supply. The risk register should capture this logic, not simply assign a red color. The label mix risk is different. So this is risk number 2. It's a particularly important for selected private label customers because the label is part of the customer's brand promise. So BlueRiver looks at how the failure could occur. So similar labels stored together, a late artwork change, a weak line clearance, or a skipped first off check. So the response should change the process. So customer specific labels may be physically segregated, only released artwork versions may be used, the first product after changeover may require verification, and line clearance can become a release condition. So the risk analysis is useful only if it leads to a more reliable way of working. Now let's see risk number 3. Okay, demand exceeds capacity. So demand growth is not automatically an opportunity. It can become a risk if capacity is already tight. So BlueRiver's retailer promise depends on stable planning, reliable supply, and delivery rhythm. If demand rises beyond available capacity, managers may respond by compressing schedules, delaying maintenance, accepting more changeovers, or relying on overtime. The risk analysis, therefore, has to consider the system effect, not just whether more sales are possible. Now, a practical decision is to define capacity thresholds and escalation rules before sales accepts additional demand. When those thresholds are exceeded, BlueRiver either adds capacity, changes the plan, or renegotiates the commitment. BlueRiver also identifies a knowledge risk. So only one technician knows the setup and troubleshooting details for the new bottle. The process may appear under control while that person is present, but the capability is fragile. The response is not simply document the procedure. BlueRiver can train a second technician, capture critical parameters and failure modes, conduct a supervised setup without the expert, and verify competence over several changeovers. This links risk-based thinking with organizational knowledge and competence. The real objective is not more documentation, it is to make the process less dependent on a single individual. And risk number 5, okay? The bottle change reaches the line too early. So the new bottle from episode 5 also creates a technical risk. So if BlueRiver is developing or adapting the bottle, packaging configuration, or related production solution, the risk is that routine production begins before the change has been sufficiently reviewed, verified, or validated. So ISO 9001:2026 also strengthens the expectation that the impact of design and development changes is determined, not merely noticed. So BlueRiver therefore defines a gate. The new format does not enter routine production until the necessary evidence exists. So this is a good example of how risk thinking connects clauses rather than living inside clause 6.1 alone. So BlueRiver does not jump immediately to a number. Before ranking a risk, the team asks three questions. How likely is it, and what conditions influence that likelihood? How serious will the effect be on intended QMS results and customer promises? And how recoverable is the situation? So, how much time would BlueRiver have to detect, contain, and recover before the customer is affected? Only after this reasoning does the team assign a simple evaluation such as high, medium, or low. The purpose of the rating is to support a decision, not to create mathematical looking precision where the underlying judgment is weak. So evaluation should change what BlueRiver does. A high risk requires immediate attention, prevention, redesign, additional controls, or contingency planning. A medium risk may justify a defined action and monitoring trigger. A low risk may be accepted, but the assumption should remain visible because context can change. One more discipline matters. A risk is not closed simply because an action was assigned. BlueRiver needs evidence that the action was implemented and it actually reduced exposure or improved resilience. This is where risk management becomes part of normal process management rather than a once-a-year register update. Now, ISO 9001:2026 also gives opportunities clearer space. So, BlueRiver determines possibilities such as reducing changeover time, automating cap inspection, improving collaboration with packaging suppliers, and sharing critical setup knowledge. These are not automatically worth pursuing. The team still needs to analyze and evaluate them. What intended result would improve? What resources are required? What trade-offs exist? And how will effectiveness be judged? Opportunities compete for time and money, so they deserve real decisions just as risks do. So the test is whether acting on the opportunity can materially improve BlueRiver's ability to achieve its intended results. So, analyze before you pursue. So an opportunity should not be pursued simply because it sounds positive. BlueRiver needs a practical way to compare alternatives. And one simple approach is to consider two dimensions: expected return and required effort. So, return asks how much the opportunity could improve an intended QMS result. Could it increase capacity, improve delivery reliability, reduce errors, strengthen resilience, or improve customer satisfaction? Effort includes more than money. It may involve management attention, engineering time, training, disruption, new equipment, supplier involvement, or implementation risk. So, a high return, low effort opportunity deserves priority. A high return opportunity requiring major effort may still be attractive, but it needs a stronger business case and careful planning. Low return opportunities may be pursued selectively when effort is small. And high effort, low return ideas should normally be deferred or rejected. Again, the purpose is not mathematical precision. It is to make resource allocation explicit. Evaluation must change the response. So, evaluation should change BlueRiver's response to an opportunity, just as risk evaluation changes the response to risk. A high return, low effort opportunity can normally move quickly into action. So BlueRiver assigns an owner, integrates the change into the relevant process, and defines how success will be measured. A high return opportunity that requires substantial investment deserves a different approach. So the organization should test assumptions, estimate resources and benefits, and perhaps run a pilot before committing fully. Automated cap inspection could fall into this category. Now, low return, low effort opportunities may still be useful, but they should not displace more important work. And a high effort opportunity with limited expected return should normally be deferred or rejected. Now, the important point is that evaluation leads to a resource decision. And just as with risks, approving an action is not the end. BlueRiver must later ask whether the expected benefit was actually achieved. Effectiveness, yeah. Take change over time. Okay, so BlueRiver's private label strategy requires controlled customization, but long and variable changeovers consume capacity and destabilize the schedule. So the opportunity is to reduce average changeover time from 75 minutes to 45. BlueRiver can separate internal and external setup work, standardize tools and settings, prepare labels and materials before shutdown, and then measure several consecutive changeovers. The expected benefit is more than just efficiency. It creates additional capacity and makes the delivery promise more reliable. This is a good opportunity because it reinforces the strategic capabilities BlueRiver identified in earlier episodes. So, alignment with strategy. The practical tool is a risk and opportunity decision register. It is deliberately different from a generic list with likelihood, impact, and color. BlueRiver records the process or promise affected, the risk or opportunity, the reasoning behind the analysis, the evaluation, the management decision, the action, the owner and due date, and the evidence that effectiveness has been checked. The last column matters. It prevents the organization from confusing action assigned with risk controlled. The register should help process owners manage uncertainty, and it should make clear which decisions have changed the system. This is what the BlueRiver register looks like when it is used for decisions. So, cap supply is high risk, so BlueRiver qualifies as second source and creates a buffer and escalation trigger. Label mix-up is high risk, so the production and verification process is changed. Demand above capacity leads to an acceptance threshold. Okay. Knowledge concentration leads to backup competence, and change over time is treated as an opportunity with a measurable benefit. The evidence column forces a final question. Did the action work or not? Good risk management should be visible in change controls, change priorities, and improved performance, not simply in a more detailed spreadsheet. So the register is not the end of the exercise. Its decisions have to enter the QMS. Some risks and opportunities should influence quality objectives. Others should change process controls, supplier arrangements, competence resources, contingency plans, or change management. If the review determines high risks but nothing changes in planning or operation, well, the exercise has probably not managed anything. This is why risk-based thinking is a lever for the next stage of BlueRiver's implementation. So the company now knows which results need greater protection and which opportunities deserve resources. So the practical output of episode 6 is a risk and opportunity decision register linked to BlueRiver's processes and chosen promises. Risks are analyzed and evaluated before action. Responses are proportionate. Owners, triggers, and evidence of effectiveness are visible. Opportunities are assessed in their own right rather than aided as an afterthought. BlueRiver can now explain what uncertainty matters and what it has decided to do about it. Now, the next question is about priorities. Knowing the risks and opportunities is not enough. So, which results does BlueRiver need to protect, improve, or achieve? And how will those priorities become measurable quality objectives? That is the focus of episode 7, from policy to measurable priorities. So, if your organization needs support with the transition to ISO 9001:2026, or if you are looking to improve your current quality management system, perhaps I can help. I also support organizations that are starting from the beginning and want to implement ISO 9001 in a practical, business-oriented way. You can contact me using the email shown on the screen or send me a direct message on LinkedIn.